Canadian healthcare has failed me and thousands of other women, so I decided to take a leap and go abroad and do medical tourism and have surgery in another country. Here's why I chose it, how I chose the place to get surgery so I felt safe and that I would get good treatment, how much all of this cost me, and how am I paying for it? After many years of pain, and that pain being ignored, dismissed, or told it wasn't as bad as it actually was, I decided that I needed to take action. The last 2 years before my surgery, I had spent effectively unemployable. And spoiler, I had one of the most common conditions women can have, a condition that more women have than diabetes, and that is endometriosis. Even when I was pushing the issue that I probably had this condition, I was misprescribed medication that made me overdose. I was told that I would no longer have strong periods on the medications they were giving me. When I corrected them and said, I haven't had periods in 8 to 10 years, they would nod and say, oh right, and then immediately reiterate, I would no longer have strong periods, and tons of other dismissal, gaslighting, not believing things happened to me over a number of doctors, a number of specialists, and a number of years. I finally came to the conclusion that if I wanted to have a life, which I was not having and considered why I was on this earth, not in an urgent way, but in a, what is this life for if all I do am in pain in bed, I realized that no sum of money could stop me from at least attempting to have any sort of quality life higher than I had at the time, and I was not going to receive any of that care from the system I was in. Admittedly, since I had gone to Mexico for diagnosis before, I had some experience researching medical tourism, but essentially I looked at websites of the condition I had that were .org or reputable websites, forums like Facebook groups, and I read what people recommended for doctors, but did not rely only on that. I had started this search before January 2025, so I had been in the States quite a bit. I considered clinics in the States, but running the numbers, it would actually be less expensive for me to fly to Europe, stay in Europe, have surgery there, and fly home with myself and someone to help me than it would cost just for the surgeries in the States. And I knew that the standard in care of Europe in most countries is fairly high. I was very lucky that there is an international body that certifies or gives a bit of reputation to surgeons across the world, including vetting them through them submitting videos of their surgery and making sure that they are as skilled as they say. For me, that made me comfortable enough. Clinic reputation, how long the clinic had been around, how many patients they had done, to reach out to this clinic. I reached out to this clinic and another clinic. I will admit, the clinic I went to, I got a slower response, but a much more detailed response. I spoke directly with an RN, filled out some paperwork through email, and then I emailed directly with the doctor more than once. This blows my mind as a Canadian who has such limited access to even speak to doctors, who never had an appointment for more than 4 minutes with any doctor that never listened to me. This doctor responded to my very detailed information with very detailed responses, his opinion of whether I should have surgery or not, but ultimately told me it was my personal choice. I chose to book this clinic, which is the Athens Centre of Endometriosis, and to be clear, none of this is sponsored. I have no tie to them whatsoever. I am just a patient that went through their clinic. I already had pre-booked a trip long ago to go to Europe, so when I emailed, I did say, is there any chance this can happen on this week while I already plan to be in Greece? They were accommodating, and Dr. Dinos even said he will put me into the same day that there is another Canadian having surgery. He only does 2 surgeries a day. Being fairly confident with my choice, I arrived in Greece. I had a pre-op at the hospital, which was much more extensive than anything I have had in Canada at other surgeries. I had a pre-operation meet that went over all the consent aspects and paperwork with the doctor, as well as an exam, which I was comfortable with. And I was also given the WhatsApp direct contact of the doctor and the RN Marina. 2 days later, I went into surgery, which for me was a laparoscopic surgery with unknown time length. It was, I believe, under 2 hours for me. Pain levels do not align with how much endometriosis you have. It's kind of unpredictable. I guessed based on my symptoms and scans, I did not have an extensive multi-organ removal on the plate, although I did consent to those if needed. And I came out feeling very terrible, but fine. I felt the hospital care, the hospital quality, and the staff at the hospital, as well as Dr. Dinos and Marina, was as good or better than I had in any care in any aspect in Canada. I had one overnight stay and then I very happily went home, but was sent with the support of any time I could contact either the doctor or the RN via WhatsApp. It was not a long healing period for me. By Friday, we actually went and did a weekend getaway. Me not doing any lifting or hard stuff, but walking 10,000 steps was no big deal in the day. Overall, I had an amazing experience with Athens Centre for Endometriosis. I have no compensation or tie to them, to be clear, but they were very competent, capable, good surgeons, good nurse, and I will say they're also extremely kind, caring, and present people. I highly recommend you consider them for your circumstances if your issue is endo. Within 90 seconds of an ultrasound with Dr. Dinos, he was pointing out things that were horrifyingly missed by the care I received in Canada, just on an ultrasound and a manual exam. It actually is so angering. I've said to my friends and family that I just have to, at this point, move on and not consider how much me and other women are wronged by the lack of care and belief in Canada. So how much did all of this cost me? This sounds expensive. It was more than I've paid for any travel. I'm usually a pretty frugal traveler. I did bring a friend with me, so considering flights to and from Halifax, an Airbnb for 12 days, plus we did do a little weekend getaway, it was about $20,000 Canadian. The surgery portion of that hovered around $12,000 for me, but as I mentioned, I had a lower level of surgery excision needed. I think it can go up to about $20,000, and you don't know before surgery because it really depends on when they open you up what they need to do. But you have full consent before the surgery when you are awake and present and in the office with no pressure of what you are comfortable with them doing. How am I paying for all of this? Well, that's the sad part. I put a lot of it onto credit cards. I had some savings. I had about 2 months notice before I went. I worked as many side jobs and hustles and used the immediate savings I had. But the reality is I still have not paid it off, and it is now on a line of credit. Great segue to, if you found this useful, I'd love if you could buy me a coffee, or heck, just share this with people you think may be considering doing medical tourism from Canada. Not just my issue, but I know tons of people everywhere across Canada are suffering, and the old adage of, you'll get help when you need it is not true anymore, if it was ever true, when you think of all the people that weren't believed due to their gender or race. And if you are considering this, I will say my only regret was not doing it sooner. My experience very likely changed the course of my life from something that would be just terrible to something that I consider living my life again. I have way less to zero pain for this issue compared to what I was having before, and I can at least interact with people and leave my house a lot of days. Yes, that's how bad and sad it was. If you could buy me a coffee or share this and comment and engage with it, it helps me amazingly. Let me know what your questions are, and I have tons of other content. I'll put something on my blog if you want as well. Just comment and I'll write that up.